Well, welcome Matt Curry to the Dating Advisory Board. I just want to give you a quick intro. Matt Curry is a successful entrepreneur and automotive industry expert with over 30 years experience. His flagship company, Curry's Automotive Service, and now he's working on the hybrid shop. So I'm very excited to have you here. But he also is an author for the A.D.D Entrepreneur, which we're going to talk about today, which I'm very excited to hear. So can you tell our audience a little bit about your background? I know your story and how you leveraged your ADD to help in your business. So if you could just share with us how it came to be.
All right. Well, thanks, Jen. It's great to be here. It's an honor. So I was medically diagnosed with ADD when I was 11 years old, in between the summers of 7th and 8th grade. And my parents took me up to Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. I went through 2 days of rigorous testing and evaluation. And on the third day, the doctors brought me and my parents in, and basically they said I had some learning disabilities, slight dyslexia, and pretty acute ADD. They basically said I was going to have to work 2 or 3 times harder than anybody else to have any type of success in school or in business or in life. So, that was kind of weird, a little devastating, I guess, when you're 11 years old, right? Mm-hmm. But, I was actually put on Ritalin. I was for one of the first Ritalin babies, and I was my 7th grade year. I was medicated and got almost straight A's that year, but they wouldn't keep me on the Ritalin because they didn't know the long-term consequences. And I really am glad that my parents and doctors took me off the meds, because I think I've learned to use and leverage ADD as my superpower. Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's good. I mean, can you give us a little bit of background of how you grew your Curry's Auto Service? So, I mean, kind of walk us through of how you did that. Sure. Well, I'm a big believer in beginning at the beginning. So I started changing tires and mopping floors and all that when I was 15 years old, worked my way up to an apprentice technician, and then ran 7 different stores for 3 different companies as a manager, and tripled and even quadrupled sales pretty much everywhere I went. So I figured if I could do it for somebody else, I could do it for myself. So I started my first shop in the back of a terrible industrial park with no visibility and 4 parking spots in Chantilly, Virginia. And we started it on $103,000 and 13 credit cards. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And we grew it to 10 locations, serviced about 5,000 cars a month, about $20 million a year, and we're voted the #1 auto repair shop in North America. And then we sold to a publicly traded billion-dollar company for well into the 8 figures.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
So tell us a little bit of when you were starting out that one space. I mean, how much time and energy? Because I think a lot of people think success just comes overnight, that it just comes and like, oh wow, I actually just came out of nowhere, where they don't really look at how much you have to do on the back end. Like you said, you guys took a chance. You had 13 credit cards. You had X amount of, like, what was your overall vision on how to do that, and what kind of advice can you give to the listeners?
Well, I don't really think there's a ton of shortcuts. Like Rory Vaden says, you got to take the stairs. You can't take the elevator, right? So, when I started my own business, when I was working for other people, I was working 70 to 80 hours a week. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast with retail, and I was retail automotive repair. So basically I kissed my wife Judy, when we opened our own business, and I said, I'll see you in 2 years. Mm-hmm. And we literally worked, 100-hour weeks. I was there at 6 in the morning and worked till 10 at night. We did a lot of race car and worked on a lot of cool cars and all that stuff. So like sometimes we'd be there until 2 in the morning, getting the cars ready to prepared for the next day race. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a ton of shortcuts. So you got to really know your business, know your product, and know everything about the business, I think, before you should go out and open your own business. And that way you're going to be way ahead of the game, and you reduce the risk.
And I think what you said is important, that you've been working on cars. So you knew your product.
Right.
Right. And so you were passionate about it. So maybe that was probably a little bit easier for you to actually accomplish what you did, because you were in alignment of what you really wanted to do. And how much do you think that plays a role?
Well, think about how many people open a restaurant because they make a great barbecue and fail. Okay, they might have the best barbecue in the world, but they don't know how to run a restaurant. It's the same thing in automotive. We have lots of technicians that go out and open their own shops up, and they're awesome technicians, but they don't know anything about the business side of it. So no matter what your business, whether it's restaurants or automotive or IT or whatever, you need to know the business, really the back end and the front end, and have a real, I was an expert when I went out and opened my own business. I knew everything about it. I started at the bottom, worked my way up to the top, and went out my own. So I would really suggest that you do that. That you have put in the years and get the experience to know, the business from the bottom up.
Right.
That's what UPS does, all right? They start everybody in their business off as a driver, okay? That's the CEO of UPS was a driver at one point.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really good. And how would you translate that into the dating world?
Well, you got to try a lot of different things.
Right. That's right. But if you go talk about being your core person and knowing who you are, knowing the business that you want to be in. I had this conversation last night with this girl about you have to know yourself in order to actually be good for somebody else.
Right. Well, my son, he's 21 and goes to college, and he's not sure what he wants to do. And my advice was him to try a bunch of different stuff. While you're out there, go get 5 or 6 different jobs in different fields and try that. So, but then once you know what you like, I think translating this into the dating world, would be, okay, make a list of the characteristics you want in somebody, right? You want somebody maybe with a great sense of humor. You want somebody who's going to be a great provider. You want somebody who's going to be maybe, even and steady, unlike me, where I'm more spontaneous and adventurous. So, which can drive my wife crazy, but it can also be a lot of fun, right? So I think you need to list the pros and cons. If you look at me, ADD, and all the different characteristics, I'm willing to take risk. I'm willing to be spontaneous, but it also puts a lot of stress in a lot of other areas like security, for instance. Okay. Now our story turned out well, but I think knowing what you want, in a really down the road, like, when you're 20 or 25, the things you want are going to be different than when you're 50 or 55 or 60. So really, when you make that big commitment like getting married, you should really know the type of, maybe some family background about that person, what their social status is, so to speak. Not that should have a lot of sway in it, but it should have some. But what does it look like 20 years down the road or 30 years down the road?
Right, because people change.
Right.
They're just, they could go in one direction, they can grow together, they could grow one way, go the other way, and then sometimes there's jealousies in certain careers, so you have to figure out if this person is a jealous person or not. Are they going to be there to help me on my mission? So I think that plays an important role in the dating world when you're trying to find someone who's aligned or have the same core values. Because like I said in previous episodes, it's going to come out eventually.
Right.
It will. And it may be at a point where you're not ready for that, to hear those things. So might as well get it done right up front.
Right, agreed. I think having the same core values is important, and you're not always going to have the exact same core values, but having them be closely aligned is important, right?
Yeah, I agree. Now, when you talk about, when we're a little bit about your consulting, so are you starting to do more for that for dealerships? Are you going in there and doing consulting? Is that more for the hybrid shop or service in general? Can you talk a little bit about some of your consulting services?
Sure. So I'm doing a lot in the automotive world, obviously, with a lot of independent repair shops, but I've had a few gigs with outside the automotive world. I think any type of service industry, I could help out. From a customer service standpoint to operations and efficiencies, really that's where I thrive, and really that's where the low-hanging fruit is in most organizations. All right, and what happens even in my business? You walk into the same business every day and you kind of get blinders on. I had a coach for 3 years in my business, and really that's what took us from 4 stores to 10 stores. So having somebody that you can bounce things off of, or have somebody that can be honest with you and say, hey, this sucks, or this is really good, but you need to do this. So I think it's, having a coach or an advisor that you can trust.
Or an advisory board.
Yeah, it was an advisory board, that's right.
There you go.
Is really important as an entrepreneur and business owner.
Okay. Okay, that's good. So I want to talk a little bit more about the principles. I want to talk more about the book. How did you come up with the book? How did you research it? Let's talk a little bit about that, because I want to learn how the principles, I like the one piece you said, develop a vision, craft a message, and overcome challenges, because I think that translates very well into the dating world.
Well, I think you're right about that. You've got to, if you want to meet some girl at a bar and she's hot, that's cool, right? But I mean, if you want a long-term relationship,
Like, where's the vision?
You know, right? There's no
Where's the vision?
There's a vision. It's right here.
Yeah,
I
it's
wanna
right here.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's right. But if you want like a long-term gig, you really need to know what you're looking for, right? And I think that's important. That you write down maybe. I don't know if you write it down or if you really think about, what are you really looking for? What are the core values that you're looking for in a person? And, and then go out and try and meet, a bunch of different people. And I wouldn't say have 10 dates with every person, but have a 2 or 3. I mean, you kind of know, at least I always did. I've been married 25 years, but, when I went out with a girl, you kind of knew whether you clicked or not. If you don't click, just be friends and move on.
Correct.
But I think, in terms of having a vision and a message, I mean, you can't just go open a business with no vision. You can't. And then once you get your vision, you need to have a game plan, okay? My goal was always to have 10 locations and sell. I mean, that was my vision from day one. And I had a step-by-step game plan. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it by offering the best customer service. We're going to inspect every vehicle. We're going to test drive every vehicle. I had policies and procedures written down that were very rigorous. In every store, they followed these policies and procedures. So they weren't doing 10 different things at 10 different stores and 152 people going in 152 different directions. That doesn't work.
Right, you made it seamless.
Right.
So
exactly.
anyway, you could even have one store go and help with the other if it's the same procedure. That makes it a lot easier.
We did that.
did?
People called in sick. People went on vacation, and you had to plug people in here. So yeah, I mean, it was the same. The store geographically may have been a little different, or may have been set up a little differently just because what the location looked like, but the procedures were the same. The customer intake was the same. The test drive policy was the same. Everybody knew what to expect. And this is important, I think, that'll translate to the dating world is, you've got to have expectations.
I was just going to say.
Clear expectations up front, maybe not in your first or second date, but if things develop and get more serious, I need to expect, what kind of support can I get from you and what kind of support are you going to give me? And who's going to who does the dishes in the relationship, right?
Right.
I mean, maybe you both do. I don't know. Maybe not, So I think having clear expectations is really important.
Yeah, I don't know if you just kind of slide that across the table, like, here are my expectations.
Not your first date. Not your first date.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. And I said, I wish some of these apps would allow you to do a quick video about yourself and kind of go through it. Because I haven't seen them where It's just, maybe like a 10, 15 second. Instead of having, yes, you should read it. But I think by seeing somebody on video and seeing their personality, I think that's... everybody does in the corporate world.
I'm surprised they don't.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I'm not part of it. Like I said, I've been married 25 years, so I'm not into any of the dating site apps, but I'm really shocked they don't.
Yeah, and if
they should go to open an app that does that.
I just kind of gave that out there to them, but that's fine.
Somebody's got to do that.
Someone's going to do it. So one of the other quotes, like I said, that I love, ideas are awesome, but execution is everything, right? So I want to talk a little bit more about that. If you have a plan, there was one part where you say like a paper napkin, right? It's just a paper napkin if you don't do anything with it.
Well, there's a lot of great people, a lot of really smart people with a lot of amazing ideas. But the problem is a lot of those ideas never get off the proverbial paper napkin, right? So unless you execute on the idea, it's just an idea. So, and it's the same thing maybe in dating, I would guess, where like, okay, I don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, I really need to do something about it. Like today's with all the different apps, the Match.com and whatever the other ones are, I think it's a whole lot easier than it used to be,
Yeah.
I would guess.
But it's a full-time job. You're having to scour and, they'll match you, but it's based on their algorithms, not your algorithms. So whoever maybe is the high, that's what I've seen. And when I've been reading up on, how they work on the back end of it, it's pretty interesting on the technology level.
I can imagine it's super time consuming. That'd be like a full-time job.
Oh yeah, I have a girlfriend that I work with that she's on these, and she said I just had to stop because it was so overwhelming.
Right.
And because she said she was on like 5, and I said, well, that's just in business. If you're trying to sell 5 different products, you're probably not going to do well at 5 different things, right?
What I always say is pick the top 3. So you should figure out, all the things that you need to work on. Let's say there's 20 different things, right? And then prioritize them, and then choose 3 at a time.
Right.
And then delegate those things to 3 different people, and then and then hold people accountable, and delegate and deadline is what I call it. So you delegate the responsibilities, you deadline it, and then you hold people responsible. And that's a whole lot easier than trying to do everything yourself. Now, I don't know how you do that in the dating world, because you kind of got to do it yourself, right?
It's got to be you. I think the most time-consuming part is like putting your actual profile up there. So, but it can be, and then all the messages that come back, and then you're researching, and I know some people are just said, I just let whatever advanced searches come back to me. Well, that may not be the parameter. You need to kind of look at in depth when you write these bios that would be authentic and be you, and the pictures be you now. That's important.
I would think that would be a number one deal killer right there. It turns out to be a different person, or they're not honest, and to begin with. Which I'm sure there's a lot of that goes on, right?
Oh yeah. And I hear the stories.
Yeah, I have heard the stories, and I think that's an important part. Just in businesses and dating, you got to be the authentic you. I mean, you may, like in my case or whatever guy's case, think that the woman's very attractive and very hot and all that, but unless you're just after the sex part and you're not looking for a relationship, don't try and fool people with a fake persona. That just doesn't work in any arena.
Right. Yeah, I say when you go into the boardroom one way and you come out a different way. No, you should be the same person when you walk into the boardroom and the same person when you come out. Right. I'm me. We had a customer appreciation. Tien and I partnered up via Derek from Cadre, how he talked about collaboration and doing customer events like that. We had one last night and it went really well. And it's interesting because you're building that value. Right? So you're building value with your clients. I always say, like, loyalty versus value. How are you providing value to your customers?
Of course.
Because there's loyalty. There's, 30 other Avaya dealers that are out there that are begging to knock on my customer's door. I've been at BenCom for 11 years. But I have to make sure that I am innovative in how I'm reaching my customers. How am I keeping in touch with them? And by having them there, I'm the same way to them, at the event that I am in the boardroom or on the phone. I'm me, or my friends. They just get me. I'm not, hello, and I'm talking technology today.
Right.
I'm just Jen.
No, I think that's exactly right. And, with my guys, I'm pretty blunt, and, I don't sugarcoat stuff. So, like, with my employees, they knew, exactly where they stood with me all the time, right? Whether they're doing a great job or not so great job, I would let them know that. Kind of same with my wife and kids, and it's to the point of a fault almost, but it is the genuine me. So, I think going back to like what you said, adding value, and this is true in relationships, it's kind of, what makes you unique, different, better as a person? Because that's a question that I always, tell companies that they need to ask themselves. What makes their company better, unique, and different than the competition? And I think same as a person, you've got to not set yourself apart in some wacky way, but I think in being genuine and let your personality come out. Let it shine, right?
Yeah. Shine bright like a diamond.
There you go, baby. I like it.
Shine bright like a diamond. How can you give us some certain steps that we can harness our superpowers to become a kick-ass company, or even in our personal life? I know we kind of touched about it there, but what does it really take? Do we put the time and energy, or how? Talk a little bit about how you bring it up in the book.
Well, I think we talked about being the authentic you and really knowing who you are. Okay. I know that my best and highest use is not sitting in my office reading a 47-page contract from an attorney, right? That's just not my best and highest use. So I want, to get with the attorney and say, okay, give me the highlights of this contract, right? And go through it with him, or have my CFO do it and then have him give me the highlights. So I think knowing your best and highest use and your highest quality attributes, and also the negativities, like I'm quick-tempered, okay? I want things the way I want it, in terms
I get very hangry.
So I think knowing your awesome attributes, but also your flaws, and, being sure that your partner recognizes that as well. Okay. So that when you are quick-tempered, or you're in a bad mood or whatever, maybe it's time to leave you alone. You go do your thing. So I would say, really learning to live with your authentic self and knowing who you are and getting in touch with your personality. And that may be going to, you know, climb a mountain and sit on the mountain for a day, or, you know, getting away to nature somewhere and really, you know, maybe journaling it out.
Right.
Okay. And, you know, you need to know your life's big plan, right?
Purpose.
Your purpose, right?
What is your Philip McKernan always talks about what's your gift and your talent, right? I mean, you could be really good at, you know, sketching, but that maybe you should be an artist in something else, or, you know, how has that become using your intuition to lead you down the path? Because you know,
exactly right. That's exactly right.
You know, if something's not right, doesn't feel like, oh man, I don't want to go here, I don't want to do it. And what is saying that to that? You know, I mean, if you feel like your soul is dying when
then there's something wrong,
exactly.
Right? And you're going to spend the next 30 years in that job doing that, or dating that person, or whatever. That doesn't work.
I mean, it's not okay. Work. I mean, if you look at your mirror, I mean, I've had this conversation many times. You know, when you look in the mirror and all you see is a ghost of who you once were, I mean, that's pretty palpable. I mean, how do you fix that? How do you channel it? Take it back a step. Go back to who you were back in the day, and go around to whoever you surrounded yourself with. I mean, I constantly believe, I mean, you are who you hang out with. Or
you know, my mom, I'm the youngest of 7 kids, very tight-knit family, and that was a saying my mom from ever since I remember, is show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's exactly right. So you're hanging out with awesome, cool people. You're an awesome, cool person. You know, if you don't, you know, you're not. Right?
But you learn from them. Like, it's an advisory board in business and in personal life. I mean, I have my go-to for personal, and I have my go-to friends for advice in business, because they've been there and they're willing to help and share. I think when you get to a certain point in your life, you have to weed out the good and the bad.
You know, and I think that really translates to the dating world, because, you know, if, you know, some hot guy, or you're like some cute, or some hot girl, or some cute guy in your case, or whatever, you know, I mean, you got to look past that, right? Is my point. You know, they might look great on paper.
That's just one of their armors.
Right. But when you delve a little deeper, it's like when you're trying to acquire a company, okay? You know, it may look great on paper, it may be a good location, but then you get into all the problems and you're like, eesh, you know, this might not be a good investment. This might not be a good investment of your time in the dating world, right?
This may not be the right investment.
Right, you know, I mean, come on, because you only have a certain amount of time.
Right.
Time is a monetary thing, you know what I mean? Time is money. So in the dating world, your time, you know, if you want to make the most efficient use of your time, is try and find the right match to begin with.
Right. And don't have it just be the picture. I had this, I was getting my hair done, and the assistant yesterday, she said to me, she said, one of my girlfriends was on one of the newer dating sites, and she was just flipping through the pictures, and she said to her, Stop flipping. Why are you just looking at what they look like? Why don't you read the description? And then she said, sure enough, she went back and a couple flips back. And sure enough, she went on like a couple dates with this guy, and she said, look, if you just read, right? I mean, because looks fade.
Well, you know, and I don't take a very good picture, although I'm a very good-looking guy. Yes. So, no, I'm just kidding. So, you know, I mean, really, but seriously, people don't always look the same in pictures, right? Correct. And I love the video idea that you're talking about earlier. But, yeah, you know, I've never been on a dating site. So, I mean, you know, I just haven't done it. So I can imagine, though, the time and just that. I don't know. I have some friends that have been on it, and they've told me about it. And I had one guy who was actually getting a divorce, and he was on it constantly. And I was like, dude, are you serious?
Was he on multiple, or was he just on one?
He was on Plenty of Fish. He was on Match. I know he was on those too.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, yeah, so...
And then they're funny when they say, well, I just saw you. Here's the good one. I got a good story.
He ended up getting back together with his wife.
That's good. It worked out. He looked, oh man, it's a little too much. But that's my whole point of how we brought this up, is how you have to have a dating strategy. It's just like business, because it is overwhelming. I mean, I have girlfriends that say to me, I just don't date because it's just too much work. What?
That's crazy. See, I mean, so they're going to be alone the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
you know?
Why? Because you don't want to put the effort in, and that translates into business. Back to business. Well, it's not working out for me. I'm just going to give up on this. Well, you probably didn't grind hard enough to get there, right? You know, I'm not grinding. I'm not shining, right? I mean,
there you go, right?
I mean, if you're not putting the effort in, I always say, people, you got to put the time in. I am minute by minute. We talked about this. I mean, throughout the day, there's, many things going on. I mean, I am up at night. I'm not watching House of Cards. I'm not watching. I am on the computer doing what I need to do, trying to make a difference and try to be helpful.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's, there's a place for TV. There's a place for, of course, reading books and all that. But I think, you've got to spend your time, you got to maximize your time so you can maximize your profits and your product.
Yeah, no, I know. It's amazing that how quick people are to give up in both the dating world and in business.
Yeah, I mean, I think in business you see the stars that shine are the guys that have been, guys and gals that have been through the rough spots, right? So they've had their highs and lows. And you'll learn from all of those things. And it's the same thing in the dating world. You go on, like I said, you try a bunch of different things. You meet a lot of different people. And you should kind of know what you want, I think.
Yeah. And if you're dating the same type of person and it's not working out, probably not the right characteristics of what you really should be.
That's exactly right? Especially if you're like in an abusive relationship. If more than one abusive relationship, then maybe you've got the problem.
Right.
So
you
sometimes
need to do some self-reflection and figure out, why do I keep on picking these certain types of personas?
Exactly. So got to look in the mirror and do some self-rehab.
Self-rehab, exactly. Now, if you're planning a business, can you just go down real quick on the strategy? So, like, if you're starting it, have a clear plan, like, talk about advisory boards. Did you have an advisory board when you started, or did you have mentorships? Because I think that's really important in learning a little bit about how we can start with the business side.
So when I started a business, I didn't have an advisory board or really any mentors. I had a few mentors along the way, bosses. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was, you got to be prepared to be busy. Okay, one day that I was working a store, I was managing the store, and it was actually the number 2 Goodyear store in the country at the time, but we weren't that busy that day. And my boss came by, and he's like, well, this is messed up, this is messed up. I'm like, well, we're not that busy today. He's like, well, you got to be ready to be busy. You got to be prepared to be busy. And I thought about that. I'm like, huh. And I've taken that with me, and that was when I was 19 years old. But I didn't have either. I mean, I knew the business when I first started. I knew the business and literally started my business on the last $10,000 to my name and $103,000 on 13 credit cards. And I just worked and worked and worked. And as we grew and probably got to about 4 stores, I was able to hire really good people because I knew everybody in the business as well. So I handpicked all the players. But in order to really grow and be really profitable, that's when I joined like a 20 group, which was a group of 20 other automotive repair entrepreneurs. And we got together 3 times a year and shared best ideas, best practices. And that was facilitated by a guy named Norm Gaither, who's a CPA from the automotive world. And really, he was one of my mentors. And I hired a coach, Jody Ruth. She was a coach of mine, mentor of mine for 3 years. And she came from she's got an MBA, came from the corporate world, and just saw things from a different perspective than I did. And I've had an advisory board. So I didn't in the beginning, but I definitely know the value and have seen the value of that, and that's what allowed me to grow and expand my business multiple times.
Okay, that's great. So I like that. Prepare to be busy, both in your personal life and in your business life. So we have a few more minutes before we have to wrap up. So can we talk about how do people buy the book? Is it on Amazon? They can go online or your website. Let's talk about how they can get in touch with you.
Sure, you can go to Amazon for sure. Or you can go to a dash of curry.com, because a dash is all you need.
Yeah, so. I like that.
And you can look at my speaking gigs, some coaching gigs I have coming up, as well as buy the book and reach out to me. I'd love to talk to people.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show today, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, good. Thanks.
All right, cool.
All right, have a great day.
Thanks.